The old ranch looked like it had already surrendered to time. Broken fences leaned toward the dusty road, the red barn carried holes in its roof like old scars, and the wind pushed through the dry grass with a lonely whisper. Everyone in the county believed the ranch was finished. Everyone except one young stranger who stepped out of a rusty pickup truck beneath the bright morning sun and quietly said that he would save it. The owner burst into laughter, shaking his head at the impossible promise. To him, the ranch was nothing more than a mountain of debt waiting to bury whoever touched it. But hidden beneath that forgotten land was a secret worth millions of dollars, a secret that would change not only the ranch, but every broken heart connected to it. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness too. Your support helps more inspiring stories reach people who need them most. The stranger's name was Nolan Mercer, a 29-year-old mechanic who had spent most of his life fixing machines that everyone else had given up on. He believed that almost everything deserved one more chance, whether it was an old tractor, an abandoned house, or a person carrying invisible wounds. Years earlier, he had watched his own family's farm disappear after his father became ill and the bank claimed everything they owned. That painful memory stayed with him every day. It taught him that losing land was never just about property. It was about losing memories, identity, and hope all at once. The ranch belonged to 74-year-old Everett Sloan, a proud man whose weathered hands carried decades of hard work. Once, the Sloan Ranch had been the pride of the valley. Families gathered there every summer, children rode horses across endless green fields, and neighbors celebrated harvest festivals under the huge oak trees. But years of drought, rising expenses, and personal tragedy slowly stole everything Everett had built. His wife had passed away 5 years earlier, his son had moved across the country after a bitter family argument, and the ranch became quieter with every passing season. Now overdue loans and unpaid taxes threatened to erase the last piece of his life's work. When Nolan offered to help restore the ranch without asking for immediate payment, Everett simply laughed. The old man believed the young mechanic had no idea how impossible the situation really was. Every fence needed replacing. Every machine was broken. The cattle herd had shrunk to almost nothing. Even the well barely produced enough water to survive the scorching afternoons. Still, Nolan refused to walk away. Each sunrise began with hard work beneath clear blue skies. Nolan repaired rusted tractors using salvaged parts, straightened twisted fence posts, cleaned abandoned barns, and patched leaking roofs. His hands blistered, his clothes stayed covered in dust, and every evening ended with aching muscles. The neighbors watched from a distance, whispering that the young man was wasting his time. They believed the ranch had already reached its ending. But Nolan never listened to people who measured success by appearances alone. Everett observed silently from the porch every day. At first he expected Nolan to quit within a week. Then another week passed, and another. Slowly, something inside the old ranch began to awaken. Birds returned to freshly repaired trees where new feeders had been placed. The horses looked healthier. Fresh paint brightened the weathered barn. The property no longer looked abandoned. For the first time in years, Everett noticed himself smiling without realizing it. One hot afternoon, while repairing an old windmill near the western edge of the property, Nolan discovered something unusual. The ground around the hill contained strange rock formations unlike anything he had seen elsewhere on the ranch. Pieces of shining mineral reflected sunlight in unexpected colors. Curious but inexperienced in geology, he collected several samples and slipped them into his pocket. A few days later, while visiting the nearest town to buy bolts and engine oil, Nolan stopped by a small geological museum. An elderly volunteer looked closely at the rocks before becoming unusually quiet. He suggested Nolan contact a professional surveyor because the minerals resembled rare deposits sometimes found near valuable underground resources. Nolan thanked him politely but kept his expectations low. Life had taught him not to build dreams too quickly. Meanwhile, financial pressure grew heavier. Bank officials visited the ranch with final warning letters. Everett signed papers with trembling hands, convinced foreclosure would happen within weeks. Watching the old rancher silently stare across the fields nearly broke Nolan's heart. The land represented decades of sacrifice, and losing it would erase an entire lifetime of memories. Instead of giving up, Nolan organized a community workday. Few people accepted at first. Most believed the effort was hopeless. Then an elderly widow arrived carrying homemade sandwiches. Soon a retired carpenter joined with extra lumber. High school students volunteered to clear weeds. Local mechanics donated spare parts. One act of kindness inspired another until dozens of people spent an entire Saturday helping restore the forgotten ranch. For the first time in years, laughter echoed across the fields. Children chased chickens around the barn while grandparents shared stories beneath the old oak trees. Everett watched tears fill his eyes. He realized the ranch had never truly belonged only to him. It belonged to everyone whose lives had been touched there. A week later, professional surveyors finally arrived to inspect the unusual mineral samples. Their equipment covered several sections of the western pasture. Everett assumed the inspection would amount to nothing and paid little attention. But the survey team's expressions slowly changed from routine professionalism to visible excitement. After hours of testing, they requested permission to continue deeper analysis. Days later the official report arrived. Beneath a section of unused land rested one of the largest verified deposits of rare industrial minerals discovered in the region in decades. The estimated value exceeded several $1 million. Mining companies immediately expressed interest in purchasing extraction rights while preserving much of the surface ranchland through carefully negotiated agreements. Everett sat speechless on his porch, staring at the report with trembling hands. The ranch everyone considered worthless had quietly protected an unimaginable treasure beneath its soil all along. But the greatest surprise came next. The companies wanted Everett to sign quickly before competing offers appeared. Lawyers and investors flooded the property with promises of fast money. Everyone suddenly remembered the forgotten ranch. Everyone who had ignored Everett for years now wanted his attention. Everett asked Nolan what he should do. Nolan surprised everyone by refusing personal reward. Although Everett insisted that Nolan deserved a generous share for discovering the deposit, Nolan reminded him that he had come only to save the ranch, not to become wealthy. His words carried quiet honesty that no contract could imitate. Instead of accepting immediate payment, Nolan encouraged Everett to negotiate wisely. Together they hired experienced legal advisors who secured an agreement protecting the ranch's environment, preserving historical buildings, and creating scholarships for local students interested in agriculture and engineering. A portion of the profits funded drought-resistant farming projects throughout the county, helping neighboring ranchers avoid the hardships Everett had endured. News of the remarkable discovery spread nationwide. Reporters arrived expecting to interview a lucky ranch owner who had stumbled upon fortune. Instead they found a story about compassion, perseverance, and the quiet power of refusing to abandon something others considered hopeless. The greatest healing, however, came from somewhere money could never reach. Everett's estranged son, Adrian, watched the story on television hundreds of miles away. Seeing his father standing proudly beside the restored ranch awakened memories he had buried for years. He realized their argument had stolen precious time neither of them could recover. Without telling anyone, he drove through the night. The next morning, beneath another warm daylight sky, a familiar truck rolled slowly into the ranch driveway. Everett looked up and froze. His son stepped out, older than he remembered, carrying nothing except regret and hope. Neither man spoke for several moments. Then they embraced with tears that years of stubborn pride had refused to release. Watching father and son reunite became the most valuable reward Nolan had ever witnessed. Months passed, and the Sloan Ranch transformed into something even more meaningful than before. Modern irrigation systems revived dry fields. Young families leased affordable farmland. Community events returned every season. School children visited to learn about agriculture, conservation, and the remarkable story hidden beneath the hills. Visitors often asked Nolan whether he had known about the $1 million secret from the beginning. He always smiled and answered that he never came searching for treasure. He came searching for a chance to help someone who believed all hope was gone. The hidden fortune simply proved that people should never judge value by what appears on the surface. Sometimes the greatest riches remain invisible until someone cares enough to keep digging. The old porch where Everett once sat waiting for failure became the place where neighbors gathered every evening to watch golden sunlight stretch across healthy fields. The laughter of children replaced silence. Fresh paint covered old scars. New fences stood where broken ones had leaned. Life had returned because one stranger refused to believe that endings were permanent. The story became a reminder that kindness often plants seeds long before anyone sees the harvest. A helping hand may uncover opportunities no amount of money could ever buy. A simple decision to stay when everyone else walks away can change generations. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness too. Your support allows more inspiring stories of hope and compassion to reach people around the world who may need encouragement today. Special request, comment below, kindness always uncovers hidden treasures. We'd love to read your thoughts and hear how kindness has changed your life. As the sun slowly set over the restored ranch, Everett stood beside Nolan and looked across the fields that had once seemed destined for ruin. The $1 million treasure beneath the ground had saved the property, but the true miracle had happened long before anyone discovered it. It began the moment one compassionate stranger believed that an abandoned dream was still worth saving. And in the end, everyone realized the greatest treasure was never hidden beneath the land at all. It had always lived inside the human heart, waiting for someone brave enough to believe that hope is never truly lost.